All right, we're live. Go.
Awesome.
Okie dokie. I have around 7 questions.
Okay.
So, could you say hi and briefly introduce yourself?
Okay. Hey everybody at Ænitraive. My name is Marchand Jooste의. I've been animating for about 16 years now. Worked at Ireland and currently at Weta, and still loving it after all these years.
Awesome. Cool. I think a lot of the students were interested in knowing like how you started.
I've spoken to so many people in the industry about how they started animation, and a lot of them seemed like they were very focused when they started studying animation. It's like, I saw these movies as a kid and I wanted to do animation, and that's definitely not the case for me. I was always interested in filmmaking, but animation never even kind of occurred to me as an option. So, when I was nearing the end of high school, around that stage we have to decide what you want to go study. I was kind of floundering a little bit. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But I knew I really liked filmmaking, so I was considering going to a film school. And I also had a friend that was always messing around in Photoshop, doing all these amazing graphics, which really inspired me. So I figured, okay, maybe I'll go into graphic design, web design, because the web was still big back then.
Right.
So I thought, okay, I'll go do a multimedia course, which is a general graphics diploma where they do some web design, some multimedia design, tiny little 3D module, and editing. So I thought, okay, well, that's a pretty broad course, covering almost all the things that I like and enjoy doing. So let's go for that. So I signed up for the course, and discovered that actually web design it's not that fun. It's a bit boring. But they had the tiny 3D module was amazing. It immediately captured my attention, and I loved it from the beginning, especially the animation part of it. Even though they taught 0 character animation,
right?
Just figuring it out myself, get the characters moving. I loved it right from the beginning. So when I finished that course, I decided okay, now I know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do animation. So that's when I signed up to a school that taught 3D animation. The industry in New Zealand was still pretty young, so a 3D animation course back in those days was pretty much just they taught you Maya. So a little bit of modeling, texturing, lighting, a little bit of animation, but it was just a kind of a generalist course. Again, a diploma. So I did that and just really focused on improving my character animation skills, because that's what I wanted to do. The rest of 3D is interesting, but I wanted to do animation. So I just did a lot of self-learning during my studies, and even once I finished, once I started working, I kept on pushing and learning more about character animation specifically. So I almost fell into it by accident, but I'm so glad that I did.
So how did you learn additionally, by yourself, or did you go to another school, or?
No, just by myself. So I really utilized the small little library that the school had. I would just go through all the books they had, the whole range, while I had access to the school library.
Oh wow!
And then once I finished, it was a lot about going online. There weren't a lot of video tutorials at the time, but I tried to find those that I could, and the rest is just doing my own little animations and keep trying to improve myself.
Wow, okay. So I'm thinking it's pretty much self-taught then.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Pretty much.
Wow, okay. So you're like a genius or something.
Heck no, it's taken a long time to get where I am. definitely no genius. It's just a lot of work, a lot of practice, a lot of learning over and over and over and over again.
Wow, okay. So you were self-motivated.
Yeah, because when you're young, you're full of energy, you love what you're doing. So,
Right.
whenever I had time off, I would do my own little animations at home just to kind of experiment and improve, to try different kind of styles of animation as well.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Cool. The second question is leading naturally from the first question, which is, how did you break into the industry? And would you say it's more about skills, or would you say it's more about who you know?
How did I break into the industry? So once I graduated from my animation 3D course, I just made a little reel of the little exercise I did at school and sent it out to a whole bunch of companies, both locally and internationally. Being a new graduate, I didn't get a lot of responses. However, there was one studio just north of Auckland that they gave me an opportunity, which was amazing. So they contacted me. I went up there to the studio and did a little exercise for them to come check me out, and then they offered me a job, and I went from there. So I was quite fortunate that I got a job relatively soon after graduating, a couple of months later. So that was extremely encouraging for me at the time, because you first graduate, you send out your reel, and you're quite nervous when you do that because you don't know what kind of response you're going to get.
Oh yeah.
So I was certainly blessed in that aspect in getting a job. And then, what's more important, skills or who you know? I would say, ultimately, it's your skills that will get you the job, but it's who you know that will get you the exposure to your reel, I would say. So if you know people, it's easier to get your reel in front of them. They take a look, and then it can go from there. So both are equally important, but certainly whenever we want to hire somebody for a job, of course, it really comes down to their reel.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you know. If the work doesn't stack up, you're not going to get hired.
Right. In terms of, I guess, if we go a little bit more deeper into who you know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, even if you know a lot of people, and they don't like you, they're not really gonna show you the door or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of questions, a lot of times my students ask, like, I guess this is more of a social skill. Like, I mean, I don't think they're asking like how they should act in terms of acting fake, but more in terms of like, what is a more professional way of having good social skills?
Networking can be, I think when you first start out, networking sounds like this big thing. Like, I have to go out, I have to meet people, give them my business card or whatever you want to do, just to make an introduction. When it's not, I think the animation industry is very kind of social and casual and laid back. It's not about, hey, I'm here, I'm going to make an impression, da-da-da. It's about just going there, talking to people, having a good time, sharing the love of animation with each other and movies and any kind of topic. It's just about relating to people and having a good time. It's not, because if you have a good conversation with people, whether it's about animation or anything, they'll remember you. So it's not about saying, here's my demo reel, push it in their face. It's just go there, meet people, have a conversation about anything, and by doing that, you'll slowly start meeting people, and they'll learn your name, and pretty soon you'll send in a reel, and they'll recognize it and go, oh yeah, I spoke to this guy the other day about horse riding, or baking cakes or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's just kind of introducing yourself and being friendly and sociable. But you don't have to be loud and outspoken. I would say just show up. If there's an event, just go. You never know what might happen, what might come out of those events. So I would say just go. At the very least, just say hi. If you see somebody kind of showing something, go up to them and just ask a question or two about, hey, what is it? What are you working on? What were you doing? Just little things like that. You can slowly start building up. But at the very least, just show up to these events, to these opportunities, because you never know where it'll go. As a student, it can be very intimidating going up to an industry professional and start talking to them. Certainly, when I was studying, meeting anybody working on movies was like, oh, whoa, you're amazing, you're working on movies. And I would have been, I was so in awe and kind of intimidated by it. When, after doing it for a few years ago, it's just a job. You really shouldn't be intimidated by it. It's still whether you work on film or TV or commercials or games or whatever it might be. It's just animation. It's just work. Don't be intimidated going up to somebody in the industry and talking to them. They're nice. And they know what it's like being a student. They were a student themselves, so they're most likely give you a warm welcome and encourage you. So certainly don't be intimidated. Just do it. One thing that I did as I was kind of studying, just to meet a working professional, I emailed one of the local studios here and said, hey, I'm a student studying animation, graduating soon. Can I come in and just talk to one of your animators and find out about what's it like working at a studio, and just general questions. And they said, yeah, sure, come on in. And I went there and spoke to the guy, and he was nice, and nothing came out of it, but it was still interesting experience, just talking to him, hearing his thoughts about animation, kind of what they look for in hiring somebody, etc., etc. Whatever general questions I asked, I don't really remember. But it was just a good exercise. So you don't have to go to the big studios overseas. Go to your local studio and talk to the animators there. It's a good start.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool.
All right. So the third question is about moving to another country, and I've had experience, and you've had experience, and you've actually had a more different experience than me because you've moved with your whole family.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's very different, I mean, it's just moving by yourself and moving with your family, but could you just explain a little bit about what it was like moving to a different country with different culture and adjusting to your job in terms of like, what you felt were like the pros and cons, and because all my students, they don't have this kind of experience. So.
Yeah. So I'd say one of the bigger moves I did was, moving from New Zealand to Singapore, because it's a very different kind of culture-wise and living environment. For myself, I enjoy moving to new countries and seeing new places and meeting new people. It's exciting, but certainly not everybody's like that. People can be very shy. They like their own little nest and just kind of stay there. But moving to a new country isn't nearly as intimidating as it might sound. There's the logistics of setting yourself up in a new country, but those are just things to do, and you check it off the list and it's done. So it's more about getting along with the people, and I think once you get there, just start talking to the people, introduce yourself. You'll forget all their names more than once. So just keep reminding yourself and write it down if you have to, or ask them, because I'm terrible with names and I'd always forget them, and I would just keep asking their names, and eventually I would remember it. So you just go there, be genuine. easy to feel intimidated perhaps about being in a company, but remember that they like your work. They interviewed you, so they think you're a nice person. So just settle in. They're aware that you're new to the company, you're new to the country, so they always give you some settling period where you can just sort yourself out, and then you'll get up to speed. So do your best. Do your work. I'm sure it'll be fine, and get along with the people. Go out for lunch. If they don't ask you, then ask them. Or it could be as simple as, hey, any good places to eat around here, or any good places to see and do. And so you start striking up a conversation with them that way. And not all the time, but often they'll invite you along to these events. So you just slowly start building up these relationships, and off you go. Pretty soon you'll find yourself at home, and if they hired you, it means they probably hired somebody else new. And I found that when you're at the new studio, all the newbies automatically just come together in the little newbie group, and they become friends, and then they go out and explore and do all these things. So you'll probably find yourself with a group of friends fairly quickly, you'll settle in. Hard stuff, I think, would be like any art. I think your own worst critic. So you especially going to a new place, you tend to put a lot of pressure on yourself to, like, I'm here, I need to perform and do really good work, and so you start stressing yourself out. So that can be really hard, dealing with your own insecurities when you first join at a new place. So just, it will pass. You just have to work your way through it, and eventually you'll feel better about your work again, and off you go. It goes in these kind of waves, usually, I found. It can also be the same with, especially if you start at a company in a more senior role, there's the expectation to perform. You're hired in a senior role, they expect you to do good work. So there's that pressure from the outset. It's not so much an issue if you're a student and a junior, but certainly if you're more leads or supervisor roles, there's the expectations, not just from the studio, but also from your team, that you need to hit a certain kind of quality standard. And until you figure out what that standard is, it can be quite nerve-wracking to kind of do what you do until you kind of find your feet and go, oh yeah, so these are the expectations, etc., and then you settle down. So there's that, and cultural issues. It can be hard, often put you out of your comfort zone because you're used to things being a certain way, and now it's not.
Right.
So those are some smaller things that you have to deal with, but it's not hard to overcome. It just kind of disappears and sorts itself out with time.